The Spanish rental market is insane, okay? So if you are on a visa and you're coming over looking for housing, it is really, really tough. But there are some key ways that you can make the system work for you. So first off, you need to know how the system works. They prioritize Spanish work contracts. You can have $1 million in the bank, and it does not matter if a single Spanish national or with a Spanish work contract puts in an application for that house. They will get it. So how do you avoid that? You've got to figure out by searching and doing your research what the average salary is in that area and what the locals are willing to pay for rent. And then you have to go above it. Now, obviously this sucks because you're going to be paying more for rent. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get, a bad place and paying more for rent. That it just means that you're probably going to get more bedrooms than you wanted, a larger place than maybe you wanted or needed, but that might be the only way that you're able to tap into the market. So the Spanish rental market, the average lease is between 5 and 7 years. Now that doesn't mean that you and the tenant are stuck between 5 and 7 years. Spain, tenant rights are way better than the US and many other countries, and the landlords know that. That's why they're so picky with rent. Now, you can leave after 6 months. You can break your lease. You're really only tied to 6 months on a long-term lease. But technically, the lease is 5 to 7 years. Now, the reason why it's 5 to 7 years is it locks in the rent prices. It's a way to try and keep rent low. In addition, according to law, after that 5 to 7 years, rent automatically renews, and the landlord can only increase the price between 1.5% and 2% for inflation. That's not a lot. So that's why these landlords that are looking to get their houses rented that might have a house that is above the market average because of its size, location, whatever, a local can't afford it, they would rather let their house sit vacant than get someone in there who's going to offer them less in rent or drop their rent, because they won't be able to recoup their costs for decades. Because if someone stays in there, the lease auto renewals, they can't increase the rent. So here's what you do. Once you figure out what your rent average is in that area, you're going to go ahead and you're going to look for over that price point. And you will find that those houses have been sitting vacant for a year or more. Then you go in and you offer that landlord maybe 100 or 200 euros less than what they're asking, but you stipulate that it's only for 1 year, and after that the rent increases back to what they were asking. So this protects you with your initial moving expenses and having to furnish a place and all of that. Also protecting the landlord because the rent goes back to normal to what they were asking, which means they can increase for inflation between 1.5% and 2% after 5 or 7 years, depending on your lease term. So everything remains status quo for the landlord, and they're getting desperate because it's been sitting on the market for that long. Now you'll probably end up with a house that's bigger than you need. We were never searching for a mansion, but it was what we were able to get into with not having a Spanish work contract. So our house is 5 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and about 2,400 square feet, which is massive for Spanish standards. And it's on the park, one of the nicest parks in the city. It's right next to everything. It's centrally located. So of course it comes at a premium on top of that. Locals weren't able to afford it. It was sitting vacant for a year and a half. We were able to come in and get it. And we love where we live, and we're going to stay here for as long as we possibly can. We've already said if this landlord wants to sell this place, we would be more than happy to buy it because we absolutely love our apartment. It doesn't always work out like that. You might not love your first apartment, and you might break the lease after 6 months, and that's okay. They'll rent it out again. But the key is to go in above the market average so that you can get something because you don't have a Spanish work contract. If you do that, you'll find a place.